This boy was becoming a man. I was holding my finger on a trigger of a piece of machinery invented to take a life. I was looking around me the moment the fight stopped, which did not last for long. I could smell the grass, the leaves, and the soil. My hand was burned because I did not have protective gloves to change the machine gun barrel. I couldn't feel anything. I could not believe it was over, but most importantly, I could not understand how it's easy for life to end. That day, life ended for quite a few. Militaries around the world had created all this weaponry, equipment, and everything else just to destroy life and property. I was thinking to myself, I wonder what my enemy was thinking before he was charging towards us. Did they say goodbye to their families? What did they eat? What were they thinking? How did they feel? Did they have a hatred inside? Anger? I'm not sure. But I guess they knew this was all very real. From the moment the combat and battle started, the only thing in your head was to survive, to inflict damage on the enemy. I know I was thinking this. I'm sure my enemies were thinking exactly the same thing. I know that I survived. I know people died. I saw them. I heard their screams on the ground in the bushes and behind the trees. I don't know what happened to them. I realized that after this battle, maybe in the next moment, I was going to be the one who was going to scream. I was going to feel numb, maybe open my eyes and perhaps see clouds one last time. I knew that, despite my best efforts, I wanted to see my parents. I want to see them regardless of how upset I was that they dumped me like a dog. How abandoned I felt. There were so many emotions going around in my head. Then I remember. I was very young. I've been told that there is a moment when a boy becomes a man. Well, aged almost 19, that was my moment. I was due to one thing. I was holding my finger on a trigger of a piece of machinery invented to take a life. People had their head buried in the ground due to the fear. Fear was real. Danger was imminent. I realized that my survival depended on the basic skills and senses given to me from birth. They were given to me by evolution. You can hear it and you can see your enemy is walking towards you. It's the same in the business. You can see somebody walk towards you and they'll tell whatever they want to shake your hand, hug you, or punch you. You can also smell people. It's amazing how far away you can smell alcohol. At least 15 meters away. You can see a cigarette in the pitch dark from a kilometer away. Senses were my guidance from that very moment. Nobody can prepare you on the horrors of the war. It's not like the movies or documentaries. I saw people who had lost limbs and they prayed. I prayed, God, I don't want to finish up in wheelchair. God, just let me survive one more night, one more day. I promised God so many things that I can't even remember anymore. I know deep inside of me, I was afraid. I was afraid I was going to die on the ground in some God-forsaken village. I was going to be dead and have my life extinguished. We were told to march towards Laszlo, and another group of the soldiers would replace us there. We were told to find a place to relax and recuperate. As I walked towards the village, I saw dead bodies of Yugoslav People Army soldiers. The armored personnel carrier was burning silently. with the awful smell of charred bodies. Everybody was just walking past looking at those dead bodies. The bullet casings just and the weapons all around. Nobody was in a rush. No one said anything until we reached the end of the street. Most of the homes had been abandoned except for a few people who'd been defending the village with some of the local Croatian army units. We walked into the newly built house with 2 levels. We decided to go into the attic to relax and so we would be able to see everything from the roof. I was arguing that this wasn't a good idea, but was told it was fine and to relax for a bit. There was 20 of us in the attic, and our other colleagues were in the house next door. We just sat there laughing. The occasional shelling of the mortars continued. Boom, boom, boom. Then silence again. I remember one guy lifted the roof tiles to look out. Everything is so quiet, he said. It's rare that you can hear nothing at all, not even the birds singing or dogs barking. Somehow animals seem to have some kind of sixth sense and know when the things are over. Complete silence is usually a signal that the bad things are about to happen. We were passing some water and smokes around. Then, the next moment, a violent bombardment began. There were shots landing 200 meters away with the mortars, artillery, and tanks. Shells began hitting the homes we were in. They were shooting house by house. Mortars hit the roofs as we started running downstairs to take position in the field at the front of the house. Unfortunately for everybody else, I was running first with my machine gun strapped over my back, and guess what? I got stuck in the doorway. I couldn't unstrap the gun, so guys behind me were yelling me to move. Eventually, they pushed the machine gun vertically and we all started falling down the stairs. The incident would have belonged in a slapstick comedy if it hadn't been such a dire situation. We become the casualties of our own stupidity. We shouldn't have been in the attic. But the mortars were firing intensely. We felt the bombardment from the anti-tank cannons and artillery being leveled up at the homes, causing more direct hits. They were not far away from us, maybe 700 meters in the nearby occupied village. The bombardment lasted around 20 minutes. We stopped counting the shells. We were still looking each other in the eyes, having a smoke and cracking some jokes. But we knew there was a fear amongst us. We knew things were dangerous. But our overwhelming feeling was one of anger. There was a rage inside us, making us want to fight because of the destruction happening in front of our very eyes. It was real. We couldn't run away from this. Chances to make a break for it were being destroyed with every single mortar and a bullet. We knew there were going to be casualties. We didn't know that the enemy was going to be so slow coming. So slow. They were slowly approaching the village through the field with the long grass. We had scouts telling us this on the radio. I never understood why they wanted that village so badly. But it was war, and we knew we had nowhere to hide. There were no backup armies or planes, nothing but us, our knives, infantry, and anti-tank weapons. Then, bombing stopped. Interesting enough, they didn't attack us. We took positions in the long grass of the field and waited and waited. We waited for almost an hour and nobody appeared. They were just silence as the sun slipped slowly beyond the horizon. My very first day in the war was coming to the end. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't tired. I didn't know what was happening to me. A random thought came into my head. What was happening in other countries? Did they know there was a war here in Croatia? Did they know what we were fighting for? That we were dying here with nobody to help? Nobody could care less. I knew there was a psychological warfare going on through the TV, radio, and newspapers. We didn't have a TV that day, but we did have the radios. We found them in the homes still working intact. Most of the homes still had the furniture with the last meal on a stove or kitchen table. Only the clothes were missing. We heard on radio how we were bravely defending this village and how we had caused so much damage for the rebels and the Yugoslav People Army. It said that they suffered many casualties, which they had, but not that many. We knew there were not so many. Then I realized that nobody from the media was there with us in the village. How could possibly know what was going on? Radio was the only connection us and civilized world. We were like kids sitting inside those homes. Village guards were patrolling the corn and wheat fields around the village, waiting for something to happen. We improvise a lot. It is hard to know how people are going to behave when faced with certain situations. Everybody was new to this. None of us had ever been in a war. We didn't know anything about dying, about killing, about being awake all day, all night. I saw people drinking. You could see people were not thinking about the situation they were in. They were thinking about their wives, girlfriends, and children. Me? I didn't know what was going through my head. I knew that I didn't have parents anymore. They didn't even have a clue where I was. They had no idea what was happening to me. I stopped worrying about my situation and started to think about my girl, who I loved so much. We had been separated for some time now. She couldn't even reach me anymore. I was thinking it would be foolish if I told her how I was defending Croatia, while she had gone to the country who supported rebels and the Federal Yugoslav Army. I didn't think she would understand this. She'd gone to a peaceful, quiet place where life was carrying on as per normal. While in my country, everything was burning. Everything was on fire and destroyed by shelling. Of course, people would start drinking. I saw the cracks in people on the very first day. Stress, handshaking, being absent when they were asked something, their eyes just staring through you. We shared some cans of food. Nobody cared. In that moment, we had nothing, just each other. That day, I learned to take apart my machine gun and put it back together in just 15 seconds. That's how familiar I became with my weapon. I saw the guy frantically cleaning the weapons. You need to clean your weapon. I had also learned how to use it. I never fired previously, and now I was repeating the actions of cleaning my weapon. Repetition doesn't make it perfect. It makes things permanent. Soon, I was able to take apart and rebuild my gun in the pitch black, difficult terrains and terrible weather conditions. I knew my weapon inside out. I was depending on that weapon to protect me, protect my peace and my band of brothers. I knew that this gun was going to be my best friend. I didn't know for how long. I thought back to this time last year when I'd been enjoying the summer, swimming, chasing girls, and larking about with my friends. Now I was sitting in this abandoned house with this band of brothers I was sharing my destiny with. With darkness approaching, we received our duties. Who was going to go on guard duty and who was going to sleep? Again, the deadly silence hung across the village. It was pitch black. There were no lights, electricity, gas, or whatever. Everything had been cut off. Everything had suddenly become so primitive. We didn't have the proper line to defend. It was a village created on a T-shaped axis with the two main streets. There were no front lines, no trenches, just houses. We knew that enemy was in front of us. We had heard rumors that the Yugoslav People's Army had sent special forces to that area. There were enemy units that everybody feared, but we didn't. We were different. We knew that we were going to strike together and die together if necessary. We believed in a cause, and more than that, we knew we had nowhere to go, just that we were depending on each other. A sound broke the silence. It was quiet noise of a little radio in the corner of the room. Some of the guys came to me and said, "Listen, Mario, if you hear the ducks or dogs barking, that means they are coming." In less than 12 hours, I had learned so much about survival. The only reason I learned about survival was the fact that was a situation of life and death. It was not about beliefs, purpose, politics, or democracy anymore. It was up to you to survive, to protect yourself and your guys around you. Okay, we were a unit, but really we were just a group of guys. That's how we worked. I was told that my guard duty was going to be between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning. That is the worst time. Your body is just exhausted, you want to sleep. I tried to fall asleep during the evening until midnight. I didn't have a watch or wallet. I had nothing except my photo ID from the Ministry of the Interior. This added extra fear that if you're captured, they will know all about you. My mind was racing. I just couldn't fall asleep. I was in the kitchen, and there was a big clock on the wall. Everything in the house, you could hear it ticking. I was in uniform with all my equipment on me. There were no pillows or sleeping bags. Just uniform, equipment, weapon, and ammunition. The only thing I could find was a shiny, beige teddy bear. I found myself holding it so close to my heart that I felt a pain inside my chest. I was holding the teddy bear as other guys were passing by me. There were candles on the table, and you could still smell the burning armor, vehicles, and the bodies in the village. I put the bear under my head and tried to sleep, but my entire life was spinning in front of my eyes. My childhood, my first love, my parents, everything I experienced up to that day. Then I replayed that day. The first battle, the combat, the baptism of fire. Next, I felt the fear and anxiety. It was like a cold bed of sweat moving across my body. Then one of the guys coming to my room and said, "Mari, it's your turn." I said, "What?" He said, "You're going to your guard duty." He explained to me what to do. They gave me the radio and some hand grenades. There I was standing in front of the house, just staring out into the night watching. All I could see was another guy doing exactly the same thing in the house opposite us. There was a deadly silence. You just want to see the first light on the horizon. Then I heard the ducks. I ran inside the house, waking everybody up, tell them the enemy was coming. Everyone got weapons. But nobody came. We learned not to trust the ducks anymore. Not to trust ducks anymore. As the time passed, the first light began to slowly appear on the horizon. God, I only need one more day. Thank you, God, I am alive. That morning, we were replaced with a different unit and headed back to the city. when I arrived back in my city, I was the biggest hero. I told everyone what happened and they didn't think it was possible. The boys came across to the coffee shop where I was saying it was true. I had my first day at war and I was apparently already a hero. Allegedly, the story of my first day encouraged many people to be braver than they would have been otherwise.